Revealed. The incredible heartwarming stories of NYC's 1888 blizzard and life-changing resilience. The wind screamed through the streets of New York City, wrapping its icy fingers around Clara's heart as she trudged through the snow. Flurries danced like daggers, blinding her even as she squeezed through frozen doorways and desperate alleys. At 28, she was no stranger to adversity. A dedicated mother, Clara held the weight of her family on her shoulders. Her husband, a war veteran, struggled with shadows that haunted him, and little Tommy, chasing that flicker of a smile, relied on her warmth. With each step, snow piled like a mountain, threatening to bury their hopes and dreams in the chaos of the blizzard. In that fierce storm, the familiar streets morphed into an unrecognizable white wasteland. She braved the elements, her heart beating fiercely within her chest, fighting against the oppressive loneliness that threatened to isolate them. Just days before, she had felt the warmth of their neighbors, laughter swirling in the air, alive with Christmas cheer. Now, everyone hid behind closed doors, afraid of the tempest outside. Clara felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let fear keep her from helping. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, lived alone at the end of the street. Remembering her frail figure, Clara pressed on, the memories of their idle chats warming her resolve. With snow flurrying past her face, she stumbled forward, her boots heavy as lead. At that moment, she felt a powerful connection with the women of her neighborhood, a collective spirit battling the storm head-on. She reached Mrs. Jenkins's door, pounding on it, her breath hot against the frozen wood. "Clara, I thought you wouldn't make it," exclaimed Mrs. Jenkins, her voice laced with surprise and relief. "Come on, let us get you inside," Clara urged. When she finally settled Mrs. Jenkins with a cup of tea, their warmth blossomed despite the howling winds outside. Clara's heart swelled with joy, a tiny victory against the storm. As she returned home, though unease crept in, thick and suffocating. Inside, the silence was unbearable. Her husband, Thomas, slumped in his chair, eyes darkened with unspoken burdens. The three of them moved through their home like ghosts, fragile and haunted, each caught in their own whirlwind of thoughts. Little Tommy, watching his parents with wide, troubled eyes, wondered how he could mend the cracks forming in their family. Just then, her neighbor's spirit inspired her again. Mr. Alcott, the local shopkeeper, had set up a makeshift kitchen, providing hot meals to those found on the streets. His kindness crackled in the air like electricity, igniting a flicker of hope in Clara's heart. She realized that in their struggle, there were many hands ready to lift one another. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Clara's heart raced. Perhaps it was time to confront the turmoil at home, but it was hard while the blizzard bellowed outside. For years, she had tried to reach Thomas, but every attempt felt like throwing pebbles at a wall. Resolute, she stepped towards him, caught between fear and love. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder, but just then, a loud crash echoed through their home. A gust of wind had slammed a window shut, fear, anger, and sorrow swirling in an unforgiving storm. "Can we hold on?" she whispered. "Would love be enough to bridge the silence?" In that moment of uncertainty, Clara wondered if they could find the warmth they desperately needed. Would they be consumed by the blizzard of despair? Or would they emerge on the other side, stronger together? The window rattled furiously, shaking Clara from her thoughts. She looked at Thomas, whose expression mirrored the storm, fierce yet trapped. In that moment, she sensed an opening, a crack in the heaviness that enveloped them. She took a deep breath, recalling the warmth in Mrs. Jenkins's eyes when they spoke over tea. "Tom," she began softly, "it feels like the world is falling apart, But we can choose to come together. He turned to her, and for a fleeting second, she saw a flicker of hope in his eyes before it vanished. How can we come together when everything else is falling apart? His voice was strained, heavy with doubt. Little Tommy crawled closer on the floor, sensing the tension thickened like the snow outside. His wide eyes darted between his parents, searching for answers, any signs that everything would be all right. Clara knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his small shoulders. "We're a family?" Clara whispered, as if that simple truth could knit their hearts back together. "But it feels cold and dark," Tommy murmured, his voice tinged with fear. Clara held him tighter, fighting against her own doubts. "I know it does, my love. But that's why we have to find the light together. Let us bring warmth back into our home." She stood up, determination flooding her as she walked to the fireplace. With a few logs and some paper, she started a small fire. The flames flickered, casting shadows that danced against the walls. For a moment, the warmth spread, melting away some of the ice that had formed in her heart. As the room filled with a soft glow, Clara turned back to Thomas. "You remember the stories we used to share, right? The ones that made us dream." She moved closer to him, her heart pounding. "What if we told them again? Tried to laugh again, just like we used to?" Thomas glanced at the fire, its glow painting his face with light. His shoulders relaxed, "If only just. I don't know if I can find that part of me again." Clara's breath hitched. She felt his pain wrap around her, binding them in their shared struggle. "But you don't have to do it alone. We're in this together, remember?" The sound of the wind howling outside intensified, but so did the warmth of the fire. Clara reached out, taking Thomas's hand, the simple act reconnecting their hearts, reminding them what it meant to be a family. Little Tommy smiled, brightening the dimness that had overtaken their home. "Can we start with a story?" he asked, brightening the corners of his face. Thomas glanced down at their son, the hint of a smile dancing on his lips. "All right, let us hear what story you have in mind, buddy." As Tommy launched into a tale about brave knights and dragons, Clara watched Thomas lean closer, the shadows slowly lifting from his eyes. An unexpected wave of gratitude washed over her in that moment. They were still alive. They were still a family. Just then, a loud bang echoed from the window. Clara's heart dropped. Had the blizzard claimed something more? With worry creeping back, she hesitated, torn between preserving this precious moment and facing potential danger. Could their fragile bond withstand what lay outside? As the wind clawed at the house, Clara clenched her fists, feeling the dread mix with an unyielding spark of determination. What awaited them in the storm? Would they have the courage to confront whatever the blizzard threatened to bring? An uncertain answer loomed, one that might change everything. Clara's heart raced as she stood frozen, the crack of the storm reverberating through her bones. The flicker of hope in the room felt fragile, like the flames threatened by a sudden gust. She glanced back at Thomas, whose furrowed brow hinted at his own conflict between wanting to stay wrapped in their family cocoon and the urgency of what lay beyond the glass. "I'll check it out," Thomas said, his voice barely a whisper. It carried the weight of countless unspoken fears and burdens. Clara opened her mouth to protest but caught herself, seeing a flicker of resolve in his eyes. "I'll come with you," she said, needing to be a fortress of strength as much as he was. The two stood, their hands still clasped. Tommy, sensing the tension spilling over, looked up at them with wide, confused eyes. "Can I come too?" A pang of guilt hit Clara. "Not this time, sweetheart. We need to stay safe right here." Tommy nodded, disappointment twisting his small face. "But come back soon?" "Of course," Thomas said, crouching down to meet his son's gaze. "We'll be back before you know it." With a tender squeeze of Tommy's shoulder, they exchanged a silent promise before stepping into the swirling chaos outside. The cold rushed in like a wave, stinging their skin and numbing their faces as they opened the door. The world had transformed into a wild landscape, a vision of white swirling in a frenzy. Clara pulled her scarf tighter around her neck, each breath clouding in the icy air. The sound of the wind was a roaring beast, howling its despair. What's out there? Clara questioned, peering into the merciless whiteness. I don't know, Thomas replied, squinting against the flashing snowflakes. But we need to see if there's something blocking the door, or a low rumble reached their ears, like the growling of a distant thunder. Suddenly, a shadow flickered and morphed into something tangible. Clara's heart stopped. Imposing against the horizon was a fallen tree, its thick trunk laying across the street, blocking them from stepping beyond their threshold. We'll have to clear it, Thomas decided, eyes focusing. Determination filled him once again. Could block help if we need it? Clara's pulse quickened. But it's dangerous out here. What if Clara, he interrupted gently, it's just a tree. We can do it together. The fierceness in his tone brought clarity. She saw him a man willing to risk for their family. Nodding, she pulled in a breath. All right, let us do it. They moved toward the barrier, labored breaths turning to puffs of steam. Together, they grasped a sturdy branch, and with a collective effort, they shoved against the heavy trunk. It shifted slightly, empowering their resolve. Come on, just a little more, Clara shouted over the wind, adrenaline pushing through the fatigue, settling in her bones. I can feel it moving, Thomas grunted, all hesitation breaking away. With one final heave, they succeeded. The log rolled aside with a creak. Clara gasped, relief washing over her. They had conquered this small crisis together, pushing through the dark to find a reminder of their strength. As they stood there, breathless, Clara noticed a flicker of light in the distance. Hope danced in her chest. Thomas saw it too, his eyes reflecting the luminescent glow against the frost. What do you think that is? He asked, wiping the snow off his brow. I don't know, she mused, uncertainty mixed with exhilaration. But maybe it means we aren't as alone as we thought. Before they could process the significance of that flickering light, the storm shifted as the gusts intensified, almost as if responding to their newfound courage. What if it's help? Or maybe something more? Thomas murmured. I guess we'll find out, Clara replied, her heart racing with both trepidation and excitement. The light felt like a beacon, a promise of possibilities yet to unfold. And together, hand in hand, they stepped forward into the unknown. The storm around them fierce yet inviting. What awaited them as they ventured into the storm's heart? Would it lead them to the light they so desperately needed, or further tests of their resolve? As Clara and Thomas moved deeper into the storm, the light flickered and danced through the swirling snow like a distant star trying to pierce the thick, angry clouds above. Each step felt heavier as the wind whipped around them, but the strange glow pulled them forward. Do you see it? Clara shouted, her voice barely cutting through the howling winds. Yeah, I do, Thomas yelled back, his excitement mingling with the biting chill. It's not far now. The landscape around them felt almost surreal. The world was coated in a thick layer of snow, reflecting the light like a glittering blanket. Their hearts raced, not just with urgency but with an unshakable curiosity. As they approached, the light revealed itself more clearly, a small cabin, its windows glowing warm and inviting against the harshness of the storm. What do you think? Clara hesitated, apprehension bubbling beneath her brave facade. What if there's someone inside? Then we've found help, Thomas replied confidently, pushing her shoulders back with a reassuring touch. We can't stay out here. We need to see. Clara nodded, drawn not only to the cabin but to Thomas's unwavering determination. They trudged through heavy snow, their breath coming in visible puffs. As they approached the door, Clara reached for the handle, feeling her heart pound fiercely against her chest. She looked back at Thomas, who nodded with an encouraging smile. With a firm tug, the door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior filled with flickering candlelight. The scent of wood smoke and something sweet wafted out, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Clara stepped inside, followed closely by Thomas. The room was small and rustic, with wooden beams and an old stone fireplace glowing softly. A woman stood by the hearth, her hair a halo of white against a dark apron. She looked up, startled at first, then her face softened into a welcoming smile. Come in, come in. You must be freezing, she exclaimed, her voice soothing and warm. "Thank you," Clara managed, still catching her breath. "We saw your light, thought we'd find some help. You did the right thing, coming here." The woman gestured to a pair of chairs by the fire. "Sit, warm yourselves. I'll make some hot cocoa." As Clara settled into the chair, she felt the warmth of the flames wrap around her, melting away the cold and tension. In that moment, she glanced at Thomas, their eyes meeting with shared relief and gratitude. It felt like they stepped into another world, one where light and warmth chased away darkness. "I can't believe we found this place," Thomas said, his voice low and reverent. "What a gift." Clara smiled, the weight of worry lifting slightly. "It's like the universe knew we needed this." While the woman prepared the cocoa, she began sharing snippets of her life during the blizzards she had withstood over the years, how neighbors helped one another, how resilience could be born from adversity. "We're all in this together," she said, pouring the steaming drink into mugs. "These storms show us who we really are." Clara and Thomas listened intently, their hearts full. The warmth of the cabin, the aroma of cocoa, and the woman's stories sparked something deep within them: strength, hope, connection. But as the first sip of cocoa touched her lips, Clara's mind flickered back to Tommy. They had left him alone in the house, protected yet vulnerable. What if they stayed here too long? "Are you okay?" Thomas's voice broke through her thoughts. When Clara met his gaze, she noticed a flash of concern. They both felt the pull of their son, the duty to return. "We have to go back," she said softly. "We can't leave him for long." A frown crossed Thomas's face, but he nodded slowly. "You're right. We need to check on him." The warmth surrounding them felt both like a blessing and a distraction. They had ventured into this storm seeking strength, and now they found community. But their family bond pressed them forward again. The woman caught their intensity and gestured toward the door. "You can't always see the way home. Sometimes you must move through the dark. Just know that you've already taken the first step." Clara's heart swelled at her words, a flicker of understanding cracking through her doubts. Together they could face anything. "Thank you," Clara said, feasting her eyes on the friendly stranger who had opened her heart and home. With renewed hope, Clara and Thomas prepared to step out once more into the brewing storm, ready to return to their own beacon of light. But as they crossed the threshold, a sudden shift in the air made Clara's breath catch in her throat. The wind howled louder, and the snow began to swirl around them in furious waves. Just then, they spotted movement in the distance. A shape loomed ahead, something that seemed far too large to be the fallen tree, and it was heading straight for them. Clara's heart raced anew. "What now?" she whispered, fear tightening in her chest as shadows danced in the growing storm. What was this new threat? Would they be strong enough to meet it together, or would they need to brave the storm alone once more? The shape in the distance grew closer, its outline sharpening against the chaos of the swirling snow. Clara squinted, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Was it a trick of the storm, or something more formidable? The wind howled around them, and the world shrank into a swirling vortex of white. "Clara, stay close," Thomas shouted, his protective instincts kicking in as he moved slightly ahead of her. The looming figure finally became identifiable, a large sled pulled by a team of sturdy, glistening horses. Thick, heavy blankets draped over them, and a man in a thick coat drove the sled, his silhouette dark against the stark whiteness of the snow. Relief crashed over Clara like a wave, mixed with wonder. "It's a rescue team," she breathed, hope blooming again. "The light," Thomas said, pointing toward the cabin's glow in the distance. "They must have seen it." The man on the sled raised a gloved hand, shouting above the roar of the wind. "Head this way. We're here to help." His voice was strong and clear, cutting through the storm like a beacon. Clara's heart lifted as she and Thomas dashed toward the sled. The horses snorted and stomped impatiently, their breath visible in clouds against the cold air. The man hopped off the sled, moving with surprising agility, and reached for them just as Clara got close enough. "Are you all right?" he asked, scanning both of their faces for signs of distress. "We've been looking for anyone caught out here. The storm is brutal. You're lucky we found you. Yes. We need to get back to our home. Our son is alone. Clara exclaimed, desperation rising in her voice. Get on. The man gestured toward the sled. It's warmer inside, and we can move much faster. Thomas helped Clara up first, then climbed in himself, glancing back at the cabin one last time. The warmth still lingered in their hearts, but now they had a new light guiding them home. The sled jolted unsteadily as it took off, tearing through the snow, a stark contrast against the chaos that had surrounded them just moments before as they rode. Clara wrapped her arms tightly around Thomas, the sound of the horses' hooves crunching through the snow a comforting rhythm in the dark. She could hardly believe how quickly their situation had shifted. Just a moment ago, they had felt lost, anxious, weighing their options in a freezing storm. But now they were not only on the way back home, but also connected to something bigger than themselves: community, kindness, hope. Dylan's going to be so scared, Clara said, her voice trembling slightly now, only partially from the cold. We'll be home soon, Thomas said, squeezing her hand as they moved deeper into the storm. Clara's thoughts drifted from fear to gratitude. They had found shelter, warmth, and now this unexpected aid. It was the kind of resilience the woman in the cabin had talked about, blooming in the heart of adversity. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the storm. The man steering the sled cursed under his breath, eyes narrowing as he strained to see. Hold on. There's something up ahead. Clara's stomach dropped. What do you mean? The man's jaw clenched as he pulled the reins tightly. Another sled. It looks like they're in trouble. Thomas leaned forward, his eyes wide with concern. What do we do? The man gritted his teeth, determination on his face. We help them. No one gets left behind out here. In that moment, Clara realized that the storms didn't just reveal fears and vulnerabilities. They could also uncover bravery and unity. She felt a fierce pride for the stranger who would rush into the fray, even when others would flee. Together, she whispered to Thomas, a strength bubbling inside her as they faced this new challenge. Clara's heart raced. Who needed help and what would happen next? Would they forge another connection through the storm? The night held its secrets tightly, but Clara knew one thing. They weren't done fighting yet. Hold on tight, the driver called out, his voice determined. This is where it gets rough. Clara gripped Thomas's hand, ready to face whatever lay ahead. What awaited them in the storm? Would their combined strength be enough to face yet another uncertainty? The darkness roared around them, but Clara felt flickers of light still shining within her. The sled jolted again, and the world around them morphed into a masterful painting of chaos and urgency. The darkness thickened, and wind whipped fiercely, pulling at the edges of their focus. Clara leaned close to Thomas, her heart racing as they sped forward. We have to be quick, the driver shouted. The others might not hold out long in this weather. Clara peered ahead, trying to gauge what lay in the storm's grip. Shapes flickered in and out of sight. Were those shadows or outlines of people? Her breath hitched. Fear snaked through her. The thought of leaving someone behind twisted her stomach into knots. Please, she whispered, the words like a prayer. Thomas squeezed her hand tighter. Whatever happens, we're doing this together. The driver steered with purpose, heading straight towards the flickering outlines. As they drew closer, Clara's heart sank. Two figures struggled beneath a flipped sled. It was a woman and a child, both half buried in the snow, disoriented and desperate. No, Clara gasped, the chill of panic weighing heavy on her chest. We have to help them. I can't stop the sled or we'll all be trapped. The driver shouted back. But I'll try to get us close enough. Clara's mind raced, and in a moment of clarity, she yelled her orders. Thomas, you stay here. I'm going to help them. Clara, wait. Thomas protested, but the wind swallowed his voice. Before he could stop her, Clara jumped off the sled, sinking into the deep snow. It pushed against her as she fought to reach the two. I'm coming. Hold on, she called, her voice trembling but strong. The woman looked up, her face pale but alive with hope. Please, help us. Clara knelt into the snow, reaching for the child, a little boy. He was shivering, his eyes wide with panic. "It's okay," she said softly, brushing the snow from his face. "We're going to get you out of here." The driver shouted to them from the sled. "I'll be right beside you. Just keep talking to him." They worked together, Clara pushing against heavy blankets, the woman guiding her way through the freezing mass of white. As Clara wrestled with the sled pieces, she could feel her heart thudding in her chest. It wasn't just fear that propelled her, but love, the fierce drive to protect, to save, no matter the cost. The child whimpered, and Clara felt a surge of urgency. "You're going to be okay. Just hold my hand tight," she encouraged, locking eyes with him. With one final heave, Clara managed to lift enough of the sled to clear the boy's body. He gasped and clung to Clara's arm. The woman followed suit, her face filled with a mix of relief and gratitude that propelled them both. "Got them. Get them on the sled," the driver shouted as he positioned the sled closer. Clara looked back, where Thomas stood, heart in his eyes, ready to support her every step. They climbed back onto the sled, the warmth enveloping them like a blanket against the ferocity of the storm. Just as they settled in, the wind howled louder, almost like a warning. Clara could feel tension in the air. There was something deeper, a threat still lurking in the shadows. "What's next?" she asked, her voice rising above the wind. "There are more out here," the driver answered grimly. "We have to keep searching. This storm is still raging, and it might get worse before it gets better." Clara's heart raced again, but this time it was mixed with resolve. She had stepped into danger before, and with Thomas by her side, she would do it again. "Let us find them," she said, gripping Thomas's hand. "We can't stop now." As the sled shot forward again, the adrenaline pulsed through Clara. They had faced fear together, and now they would face the unknown. Would they find others lost in the storm? What challenges awaited them in the swirling chaos of snow? The answers lay ahead, buried within the blizzard's icy grasp. The cold bit Clara's skin as they barreled into the unknown, the wind howling like a creature hungry for attention. She could see the outlines in the distance, the swirling shadows which held both promise and peril. Each bump in the sled felt like a reminder of their vulnerability, but she pushed that thought aside. There were lives at stake, and she refused to let fear anchor her down. "Keep your eyes peeled," the driver yelled again, his voice cutting through the storm like a lifeline. "We need to find more." With each flicker of movement in the white abyss, Clara's heart leapt. Would they uncover more victims? Or was the blizzard hiding something darker? The anxiety twisted inside her, a knot that refused to unravel. She looked at Thomas, his brow furrowed with concern but determination shining through the fear. Together, he mouthed, squeezing her hand. Their eyes met, and in that shared look, they forged a silent bond. Each person they saved was a testament to their shared courage. And if there were more out there, they would find them together. The driver pressed on, navigating the chaotic whirl of snow and ice. Suddenly, Clara spotted a silhouette ahead, barely visible through the swirling snow. "There," she shouted, pointing with urgency. Her heart raced again, fueled by hope. As they approached, the shape transformed into a man, a figure hunched over, struggling against the snow that clung to his clothes like a shroud. Clara jumped off the sled again, her resolve solidifying with each step. She couldn't leave him behind. "Help! I'm here!" she called, her voice nearly drowned by the storm. The man turned, a flicker of recognition flashing in his eyes. "Please, I can't move," he gasped, his breath puffing like smoke in the freezing air. "I'm trapped." Clara knelt beside him, snow sinking around her legs. "We're gonna get you out," she said, her voice steadier now. "Thomas, help me with this." Together, they fought to free him, moving ice, digging through thick snow, their hands numb but invigorated by the challenge. "Stay with me," Clara urged. The man's gaze wavered, and fear flickered in his eyes. Then suddenly, a roar of wind made the ground beneath them shift, and Clara lost her balance. Thomas caught her just in time, his grip firm, his resolve unwavering. "I got you." As Clara steadied herself, she pushed harder against the snow. "We can't give up now." In that moment of shared urgency, They managed to lift the last of the heavy snow. The man gasped, shivering, then finally stumbled forward, clinging to Clara for a moment before turning toward the sled. "Thank you," he managed between coughs. "Get on. We need to keep moving," the driver urged, his eyes scanning the white abyss. They climbed back onto the sled, hearts pounding. Clara's breath came out in foggy puffs, but it felt lighter now. They were making a difference, he was alive, and maybe, just maybe, there were still more souls waiting to be found in the storm. "Keep looking," Clara shouted to the driver. "We can't stop now." But the storm intensified, swirling around them like a living creature, as if sensing their determination. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't just the cold. "Something's not right," Thomas muttered, eyeing the approaching darkness. As they pressed on, an eerie quiet enveloped them. The storm howled, but it felt as if something held its breath, watching, waiting. Clara squinted into the haze, unsure of what lay ahead. A figure flickered again in the distance, shadowy and hunched. "Is that?" Clara's heart raced. "Let us go." The sled surged forward. But what she didn't expect was the fear that loomed even larger than the storm itself. They pushed through the blinding snow, adrenaline surging through Clara's veins. The figure ahead grew more defined yet still shrouded in mystery. Was it another person in need or something else entirely? Each heartbeat echoed the weight of her decision to chase after hope. "Faster!" she yelled, desperation lacing her command. The driver complied, driving the sled harder against the whipping winds. Her pulse quickened as they finally drew close enough to see the figure more clearly, revealing not just a person, but a child. The small form was curled tight against the frozen ground, face pale and eyes closed, the embodiment of vulnerability in a merciless world. "Stop!" Clara shouted, scrambling off the sled again, her heart breaking at the sight. Thomas followed closely, his hands shaking but determined. "Stay with me," he urged, taking a protective stance beside her. "Wake up." Clara gently shook the child, her fingers trembling. The boy's eyelids flickered, but nothing more. She could see the faint rise and fall of his small chest, yet it was becoming alarmingly shallow. Panic surged within her. They had to act quickly. "Come on, buddy. We need you to wake up." Thomas's voice was steady, but Clara could see the worry etched on his face. She pulled off her gloves and gently rubbed the child's hands between her own, trying to warm them up. "Where's your family?" she whispered, forcing the words through the tightness in her throat. She didn't know if he could even hear her, yet something deep within her kept pushing for connection, the pull of humanity in the face of despair. "Clara, we have to move him," Thomas shouted over the storm. Clara nodded, the urgency of the situation pinching at her heart. They had already lost too much time. With great care, they lifted the little boy, cradling him as they rushed back to the sled. The storm swirled more violently around them, as if protesting their actions, but there was no turning back now. Clara felt the boy grow heavier in her arms, and her resolve hardened. "Get him in, now," she barked at the driver, who helped them lay the child on the sled, desperate to shield him from the biting wind. They huddled close, Clara draping herself over him, trying to share every ounce of warmth she had. "Just breathe," Clara murmured, brushing the hair away from his forehead. "You're going to be okay." But doubt crept in. She could feel it clawing at her heart, whispering that not all could be saved. "Where do we go? The blizzard is worse now. We need to find shelter," the driver yelled, frustration bleeding through his panic. "Head toward the lights." Clara spotted a faint glow flickering through the storm like a candle in the dark, struggling but fighting to remain visible. "You see that? We can make it." Thomas nodded, steeling himself. "Let us go then." The driver urged the sled forward, slamming into the drifts ahead of them, and Clara held the boy tight, whispering soft reassurances. But as they barreled toward that light, a chilling howl echoed through the tempest, a sound not just of wind, but a warning. Clara's heart sank. She turned her gaze back toward the storm, just in time to see another shadow loom close behind them. "We're not alone," she breathed, dread creeping in. What else was hiding within this storm? Who or what would they confront next? The darkness swallowed her words, leaving only uncertainty. As they surged forward, heartbeats synced with the rhythm of the sled. Clara understood they'd have to face not only the elements that threatened them but whatever danger lurked right behind. The sled jolted over a hidden ridge, sending Clara and Thomas sliding into each other, their bodies instinctively forming a protective barrier around the boy. The howl of the wind was like a wild beast, echoing off the walls of ice and snow surrounding them. Clara's heart raced. She peered over her shoulder, hoping to catch a glimpse of what pursued them. Was it the storm itself, or something more sinister? "Keep your eyes on the light," Thomas shouted, his voice nearly lost in the gale. Clara nodded, forcing herself to focus. The glow ahead cut through the white chaos like a promise hope in tangible form. They pushed onward, but the icy tendrils of fear wrapped tightly around her chest. "Just hang in there," Clara murmured to the child, who lay limp beneath her. She could feel the cold seeping through her clothing, but she pressed herself closer, hoping her warmth would shield him from the relentless chill. The little boy's skin was like ice, his breath shallower than before. "Please, please," she chanted quietly, almost as if a mantra could summon miracle. The sled surged forward, jostling them again. Clara tightened her grip around the child, gritting her teeth against the biting wind. They were entering a thicker part of the blizzard, flakes whipping harder and faster. From within the storm, she felt a pulsating energy creeping closer, a sense of dread that set her nerves on fire. Suddenly, a shape broke away from the storm's veil, lunging forward, a dark figure with wild eyes and matted fur, its frame towering above the ice. Clara's breath hitched in her throat. "What is that?" she gasped, dread curling in her abdomen. "We can't stop," Thomas yelled, urgency threading his voice. The driver pushed the sled forward with a surge of speed, but the shadow loomed larger, tailing them, its growl reverberating with an unearthly power. The flickering light was still there, but so was the beast, drawing nearer with every passing second. Clara felt her heart hammering against her chest, a wild animal desperate to escape. Their chances were slim, too slim, but she'd be damned if she let fear take hold now. "Clara," Thomas shouted, "can you use the flares?" "The flares." Clara nodded, adrenaline jolting through her as she reached into her pack. She fumbled with the small tubes, barely warming her fingers enough to light one. The sharp crackle burst aflame and illuminated the storm, casting a momentary glow on the dark figure stalking them. "Here," she shouted, aimed and threw the flare into the snow beside the lurking creature. The flare ignited, and bright light flashed, illuminating the landscape. The figure hesitated, its wild eyes flaring in surprise, but then surged forward. "Go!" the driver yelled, pushing the sled faster. They hurtled toward the light, their last shred of hope. Clara felt the boy start to stir beneath her, his small body responding to the crackling warmth. "Please hold on," she wept softly, but as they neared the haven of light, a piercing howl erupted from the distance. The creature wasn't backing down, and they sprinted closer to salvation. Would they make it? In that moment, Clara felt a stirring deep in her heart. Against all odds, she couldn't help but hope. They were running out of time, but as the shadows danced dangerously close behind, Clara realized she'd fight for every heartbeat. The sled pounded on, carving paths through the unforgiving snow. The light flickered ahead like a heartbeat against the wrath of the storm. Clara held onto the child tightly, feeling the warmth of life begin to swell within him, a stubborn ember of fight. But before they could reach the light, a powerful wind blasted towards them, knocking them all sideways. Clara's grip faltered, panic surging back once more, as she struggled to hold on to the child and the reality of their dire circumstances. What lay ahead could change everything if only they could weather this storm. What awaited them in the light? Would it bring the salvation they desperately needed, or something else entirely? With every moment counting, Clara clenched her teeth, determined to uncover the truth that awaited them. The light grew brighter, radiating warmth against the stinging cold. Clara gripped the child tighter, strength surging through her as the sled barreled forward. "We're almost there," she shouted, her voice barely heard over the roaring wind. Thomas leaned forward, his eyes fierce with determination. "Keep going. We can't let that creature reach us." The driver pushed the team onward, the horses straining against the storm's fierce grip as they approached the glowing sanctuary. Just then, Clara saw it, a small, sturdy cabin nestled amid the swirling snow, its windows beaming like a lighthouse in the dark. Relief flooded her as they surged forward. "That's it. That's our shelter," she cried. But as they neared, the figure behind them howled, closer than ever, its menacing shadow stretching ominously. "We need to get inside now," Thomas urged as the driver guided the sled to a halt. They jumped down, and Clara instinctively shielded the boy with her body, urgency coursing through her. "Quick!" the driver called, rushing toward the cabin door, throwing it open to reveal more warmth than she could have imagined. Inside was a small space filled with the faint glow of lanterns, and several people were huddled together, relief washing over them as they saw the newly arrived. "Help us!" Clara shouted, urgency mingling with desperation. The group rushed to meet them, arms outstretched to pull everyone inside, sanctuary against the storm. Once inside, Clara laid the child gently on a bed of blankets, her heart aching as she checked his pulse. He was cold, but there was still life in him. "He needs warmth," she shouted, urging others to fetch any blankets or materials to keep him cozy. "Don't worry, we've been waiting for folks like you," one of the women reassured her, a matronly figure with kind eyes. "You're safe now. We'll take care of him." Clara watched as the community surrounded the boy, enveloping him in warmth and comfort. She turned back to the door, her heart pounding with adrenaline and fear. The cabin felt full of life, warmth, but the storm outside still raged, threatening the safety they had just found. "Where's the beast?" she whispered. "Where did it go?" The driver stepped beside her, his face stern. "It's outside, but here it can't reach us. We've set our defenses. The cabin is sturdy, but we need to keep an eye out. I'm not sure it will give up that easily," Thomas said, worry etched on his forehead. Moments turned into eternity as they waited, all eyes glued to the door, the howling winds echoing threats that would not relent. Clara felt a tight knot in her chest, fighting the urge to fall apart. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the cabin, the wind slamming against the sides, testing the walls. Someone shouted, gripping their axe tightly. Clara stepped forward. "Stay together," she urged, her voice steady despite the boiling anxiety simmering beneath. "We're safe inside, we just have to hold on." As the wind screamed outside, something shifted within her. They had fought to survive, battled the storm, and found comfort in the company of strangers turned allies. "Together," she yelled. "If we battle with our hearts, we'll make it." One by one, the group rallied. They took positions near the windows, hands clenched around makeshift weapons, determination shining through fear. Together they stood, united against the storm, against the uncertainty that threatened to overwhelm them. Minutes felt like hours, the tension rising like the storm outside. Every gust made Clara's heart race. Would it break through? Would they have to fight for their lives? But then came a sudden crack, a flash of fury as the beast lunged at the door, teeth bared. Clara gasped, but the group rallied behind her. "We not back down," someone shouted, raising their weapon high. "Together, you can't win." The creature slammed against the cabin, roaring fiercely, both a challenge and anger cascading through the storm. Clara, standing firm, felt an overwhelming power surge from the people around her. The belief that they were part of something larger ignited her resolve. They were not just fighting for their own survival, they were fighting for each other. More voices rose as the beast raged against the door, pushing and clawing. A cacophony of unity filled that cabin, backing each other, helping each other. That heartening bond dispelled the fear that had permeated their souls. But as it clawed again, cracks began to splinter along the doorframe. "Can't hold much longer," Thomas yelled, stepping beside Clara, trying to shield her and the others. Clara closed her eyes, envisioning the warmth of their shared stories, the love she felt for Thomas, for their son. "We've got love," she shouted, raising her voice over the raging storm, feeling the strength within her. "We are more than the storm." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the broken door frame. Clara walked forward instinctively, heart blazing with courage. The tiny boy's presence filled her with light, memories of laughter and love rushing back. He was the reason they had fought so hard. As if sensing her bond, the warmth spread through the cabin, igniting a barrier between fear and despair. Clara pressed her hands against the door, channeling everything her love, her determination. The room filled with a soft glow, illuminating every face, every heartbeat around her. The beast howled and lunged again, but Clara felt a sudden stillness wash over her. Everyone surrounded her with unwavering faith. They were one force against nature itself. The creature paused mid-strike, confusion washing over it. "Love has power," Clara shouted. "We are united." With a final roar from the beast, the cabin trembled, and in that moment of unity, the blizzard waged its last fight. The storm swirled, but the light held strong, pulsating with the warmth of shared hearts, minds, and spirits bidding farewell to the darkness. Silence followed, heavy and thick, as the last remnant of the beast fell into quiet, the howl of the wind finally fading into a hushed whisper. The cabin stood firm as dawn crept in, finally breaking through the veil of darkness, casting a golden glow that warmed their little haven. "We did it," Thomas whispered into Clara's ear amidst the stillness, pulling her into a soft embrace. Together, tears of relief rolled down her cheeks, mingling with the laughter that erupted amongst their newfound family. They had braved not only the blizzard but each other's fears, revealing a fierce resilience. Little by little, the group began to explore, opening windows to breathe in the fresh crispness of the new dawn where sunlight danced against the snow and warmth thawed the cold from their bones. At a joyful voice rose a shared laughter that echoed through the cabin, a farewell to the storm that had tested them. Clara felt the life around her, secure, connected. And as they sat together, hands intertwined, she remembered Tommy. "We need to get back." "Yes. He must be worried sick," Thomas added, eyes bright with renewed energy. Outside, crimson and orange flared across the horizon. The storm now just a memory waiting to be written into their next chapter. Clara felt her heart swell. "The warmth we found, let us carry it with us." "Absolutely," Thomas nodded. "To our little superstar." Together, they stepped outside, hearts ignited with purpose as they walked home through the sparkling snow. They didn't just carry the memories of struggle. They held the courage forged in unity. They would face whatever life brought next together, holding tight to the love that bound them. As they reached their front door, Clara smiled at the familiar warmth waiting inside, ready to embrace them anew. And there, at that threshold, Clara thought of all they had overcome and smiled brighter than the sun, heart full of hope for all the tomorrows yet to come. The storm had passed, and in its wake, they embraced a world filled with light. A world where they learned that every challenge brought them closer and every moment was a reminder that love, that pure, courageous love, was always their greatest strength. As they settled back into their cabin with warmth, laughter, and stories to share, their little family looked forward to the next chapter, knowing they would face it together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next incredible stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and help more people discover these heartwarming tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. The power of community is real.